This time, all participants' lines will be on a listen-only mode for the duration of today's conference. Please direct all questions to the Q&A session, and I'd like to introduce Sylvia Lopez. Ma'am, you may begin.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Sylvia Lopez Gowana, and I am the Associate Program Manager for the CDFI program, the ERP program.
Welcome. My name is Latasha Banks, and I'm the Senior Portfolio Manager for the CDFI ERP.
Welcome. My name is Erin Kelly, and I'm a Management and Program Analyst with the ERP.
In today's application overview webinar, we will be going over key points for the application. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A feature of the webinar, and please address all of your questions to all panelists. That way we make sure that we see your questions and can get answers to you accordingly.
So today's agenda, we will cover about the CDFI funds, FY 2022 CDFI ERP overview, preparing your application, completing the application, application submission, review, and selection process, uses of award, reporting, and reminders. Please note, capitalized terms not defined herein shall have the meaning specified in the CDFI Equitable Recovery Program Notice of Funds Available, known as the NOFA. The CDFI's mission is to expand economic opportunity for underserved people and communities by supporting the growth and capacity of a national network of community development leaders, investors, and financial service providers. The vision of the CDFI Fund is America in which all people and communities have access to the investment capital and financial services they need to prosper. The CDFI program supports investments in low-income communities through our assistance programs, Bank Enterprise Award Program, Capital Magnet Funds, CDFI Bond Guarantee Program, Community Development Financial Institutions Program, Native Initiatives and Native American CDFI Assistance Program, New Markets Tax Credit Program, Small Dollar Loan Program, Economic Mobility Course, CDFI Rapid Response Program, and CDFI Equitable Recovery Program.
Now we'll move on to our second agenda item, which is the FY 2022 CDFI ERP overview. The Consolidated Appropriations Act 2021, Section 523 of Division N, Public Law Number 116-260, provided $1.75 billion in supplemental appropriations to remain available until expended for the Community Development Financial Institutions Fund to provide grants to CDFIs to respond to the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Awards will be made to CDFIs to expand lending, grant-making, and investment activity in low or moderate income communities and to borrowers, including minorities, that have significant unmet capital or financial services needs and were disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and to enable CDFIs to build organizational capacity and acquire technology, staff, and other tools necessary to accomplish the activities under a CDFI ERP award. Eligibility for CDFI ERP awards. Organizations eligible to apply for a CDFI ERP award are community development financial institutions that are certified as CDFIs by the CDFI Fund as of the date of the CDFI ERP Notice of Funds Availability, or NOFA, is published in the Federal Register, or June 24th, 2022. have at least 30% of their average annual financial products closed and grants made in its 5 most recent historic fiscal years, both in terms of dollar volume and number of transactions, in ERP-eligible geographies. Meet the criteria outlined in Table 3 of the NOFA, are in compliance with all outstanding CDFI fund awards, allocations, or CDFI bond guarantee program requirements, and meet benchmarks for programmatic and financial safety and soundness and minimum thresholds of financial health and financial capacity, as evidenced by at least 2 years of audited financial statements. Please note, affiliated CDFIs, as defined in the NOFA, may not apply separately under the CDFI ERP. Only one affiliate must be selected to apply. ERP-eligible geographies. The above image is an excerpt from the CDFI Fund Information Mapping System, or SIMS, database, which displays the Washington, D.C. metro area. The areas highlighted in green are ERP-eligible census tracts. Information is available in SIMS for the entire United States and U.S. territories and can be searched by address and census tract. CDFI ERP Overview, Award Information. The award form. All awards will be in the form of a grant. Please pause. I understand that individuals, participants cannot currently view the slides.
I'm seeing the slides. This is the operator, and I'm seeing the slides.
Okay. Thank you. I guess a few participants, do you have any guidance, operator, for individuals who cannot see the slides?
I would just have them probably just maybe try to reconnect to it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Robin.
If they got...
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to continue. The award amount is minimum $500,000, maximum $15 million, or 3 times the applicant's average on-balance sheet financial products closed in its 5 most recent historic fiscal years, whichever is less. If 3 times the average on-balance sheet financial products closed in its 5 most recent historic fiscal years less than $500,000, maximum award an organization is eligible to request is a $500,000 award. All applicants must deploy their full award amount during the 5-year period of performance.
The CDFI ERP overview of eligible activities. Applicants must use an award only for the following eligible activities. 6 eligible financial products and services categories include financial products for all institution types, financial services for regulated institutions only, development services for all institution types, grants for all institution types, loan loss reserves for all institution types, capital reserves for regulated institutions only, and 7 eligible operational support categories include compensation and personnel services, compensation fringe benefits, professional services costs, travel costs, training and education costs, equipment, and supplies. Award limitations. There are limitations on what portion of the CDFI ERP award may be used for certain categories of eligible activities. For any award size, no more than 25% of the award amount may be used for financial services and development services combined. A recipient may use up to the greater of $166,677 or 15% of the award amount not to exceed $400,000 for eligible activities in all operational support categories combined. Recipients must use 90% of award dollars for activities in ERP-eligible geographies. Any award funds deployed outside of ERP-eligible geographies must serve low or moderate income persons or businesses disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic that are included in CDFI-eligible markets. Eligible lines of business. The award may be used for the following lines of business: commercial real estate, small businesses, micro-enterprise, community facilities, affordable housing, consumer financial products, consumer financial services, commercial financial products, commercial financial services, intermediary lending to nonprofits and CDFIs, other lines of business as deemed appropriate by the CDFI Fund. These are the critical deadlines for applicants. The first being the last day to enter EIN and UEI numbers in AMIS. The deadline is July 26, 2022 at 11:59 p.m., and the submission method is through AMIS. For the last day to submit the SF-424 mandatory form, application for federal assistance, the deadline is July 26, 2022 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time electronically through grants.gov. The last day to contact CDFI Fund with questions about CDFI ERP, the deadline is August 19, 2022 at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. The submission methods include through service request via AMIS, which is preferred, or by email to erp@cdfi.treas.gov. The last day to contact CDFI Fund with questions about compliance or CDFI certification is August 19, 2022 at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. The ways to contact are by service request via AMIS, which is preferred, by email at ccme@cdfi.treas.gov, or by phone at 202-653-0423. The last day to contact AMIS IT Help Desk regarding AMIS technical problems only is August 23, 2022 at 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. The ways to contact are by service request through AMIS, which is preferred, by email to amis@cdfi.treas.gov, or by phone at 202-653-0422. The last day to submit CDFI ERP applications is August 23, 2022 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time through AMIS.
Preparing your application. The application process overview. First is pre-application, which includes SAM.gov, grants.gov, AMIS account, which includes your UEIs and EINs. Application components include SF-424, grants.gov, AMIS application, and attachments. Review is step 1, eligibility, step 2, financial analysis and compliance risk evaluation, step 3, application evaluation and initial funding recommendations, step 4, award amount determination. Please note, applicants should review all application materials on the CDFI ERP website as they become available. Getting started. First, read the CDFI Equitable Recovery Program NOFA. Second, register, and/or update your account in the following systems: Systems of Award Management, known as SAM.gov, Grants.gov, AMIS. Third, download and familiarize yourself with the application materials found on the CDFI ERP website. SAM.gov. Existing SAM.gov users should ensure that their account is active and up to date. The CDFI fund will not consider an application from an organization that fails to register or activate its SAM.gov account, and as a result, is unable to submit its SF-424 through Grants.gov and have it validated by Grants.gov by July 26, 2022 by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. The CDFI fund does not maintain SAM.gov. Contact the Federal Service Desk at 1-866-606-8220 for technical assistance or visit www.fsd.gov. Use EI and EIN. Ensure that the named CDFI ERP applicant has a current and valid unique entity identifier, known as UEI. Ensure that the named CDFI ERP applicant has a current and valid employer identification number, known as EIN. Ensure that the applicant's UEI number and EIN are entered accurately in Grants.gov and AMIS. Applications submitted with the UEI and EIN of a parent or affiliate organization will be rejected. Applicants are encouraged to start the process now and well before the application due date. Grants.gov. Only the SF-424 will be submitted via Grants.gov. All applicants must submit their SF-424 through Grants.gov and have it validated by July 26, 2022 by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time under the Funding Opportunity Number, CDFI 2022 ERP. Note, if the applicant does not submit a valid SF-424 through Grants.gov by the deadline listed in the CDFI ERP NOFA, the applicant will be unable to submit materials in AMIS and the application will be deemed ineligible. New Grant.gov users should complete the registration process as soon as possible. If the amount requested on the SF-424 is different from the amount an applicant requests in its application submitted via AMIS, the CDF fund will only consider the amount requested in the application submitted in AMIS. The CDFI fund does not maintain Grants.gov. Contact Grants.gov at 1-800-518-4726 or support email at support@grants.gov for technical assistance. Awards Management Information System. Other than the SF-424, each applicant must submit all other required application materials via AMIS. Additionally, applicants must enter the EIN and UEI number in AMIS by July 26, 2022 by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. An applicant is required to designate at least one authorized representative and point of contact in its AMIS account. Authorized representatives cannot be consultant or other contractors. The contact's POC/AR must also be identified as active in AMIS. An applicant that fails to properly register and update its AMIS account may miss important communication from CDFI funds and may not be able to successfully submit an application. Applicants should review Table 4 of the CDFI ERP NOFA for a list of required application documents that must be submitted via AMIS. AMIS will validate that all applicants that an applicant has provided each required application document prior to the submission of the application. Applicants should allow for sufficient time to review and complete all required application documents, confirm all attachments are being included with the correct documents, and remedy any validation issues prior to the application deadline. Excuse me. Upon submission, the application will be locked in ANIS and cannot be resubmitted, edited, or modified in any way.
Completing the application.
Hi, Erin. This is Dan. So we've just been informed that there was an issue with the code posted on the website. So if you go to start the WebEx by clicking on the link on the CDFI Funds website, it will pull you to My Meetings page, and there's a pre-populated conference number. That's the first thing. It starts PWX, and that number is not correct. So it ends, right now it's PWX W2800278. So it should end in 277. So if you change the 8 at the end of that number to a 7 and try to log in again, you should be able to see the slides. We apologize for the inconvenience. We will be posting a recording of this on the webinar on our website, and we'll also be doing another webinar next week. But we want to make sure folks are able to access the WebEx function, because that's how we were going to take questions, and I know you all have questions. So, Erin, I will hand it back to you. Just as a reminder, to access the webinar, you're just going to change the last number on the conference/meeting number from an 8 to a 7, and you should be able to log in successfully. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I'll continue the presentation. The CDFI ERP Pre-Application Eligibility Questionnaire. Prior to launching a CDFI ERP application, you will be required to complete the CDFI ERP Pre-Application Eligibility Questionnaire. 1, attest that at least 30% of your average annual financial products closed and grants made in your 5 most recent historic fiscal years, both in terms of dollar volume and number of transactions, were in ERP-eligible geographies. And 2, attest that you have audited financial statements for your 2 most recent historic fiscal years. Historic refers to the applicant's most recently completed fiscal years for which it has prepared audited financial statements. Please see the NOFA for additional information. Required application sections in ANIS. Applicant eligibility, organization and application information. Part 1, business strategy. Part 2, community impact. Part 3, organization capacity, appendices, and attachments. Applicant eligibility. This section includes the applicant eligibility data table and the applicant eligibility criteria. Please note the requested information will substantiate the attestations made in the pre-application eligibility questionnaire. Tips for completing the applicant eligibility data table. To complete the applicant eligibility data table, you will need to determine which of your transactions made in your 5 most recent historic fiscal years were located in ERP-eligible geographies. The term ERP-eligible geographies is defined in the FY 2022 CDFI ERP NOFA. View the list of ERP-eligible geographies on the CDFI Funds website at www.cdfifund.gov/ERP. View the ERP eligible geographies by clicking on the ERP button on the CDFI Fund Information Mapping System, or SIMS, page of the CDFI Fund's website at www.cdfifund.gov/CIMS3. And finally, utilize the Applicant Eligibility Worksheet and the CDFI ERP Data Inputs Excel Workbook, available on the CDFI Fund's website at www.cdfifund.gov/ERP to gather all required eligibility data offline before entering it into AMIS. In addition to the census tract lists on the CDFI Fund's website, all native areas are also ERP eligible geographies. As native areas often cross census tract boundaries, those geographies are not covered by the Excel file on the CDFI ERP page, but they are available in SIMS. Applicants can determine whether an individual address is located in an ERP eligible geography using the ERP page in SIMS. If applicants need to determine census tract numbers for a large volume of addresses, they can use the bulk address geocoding tool in AMIS, which is located under the TLR Import-Export Certify page. The CDFI Fund will release additional guidance on using this bulk geocoding functionality on the website soon. After using the bulk address geocoding tool to determine census tracts associated with certain addresses, applicants will need to cross-reference these census tracts with the ERP eligible geographies Excel file on the CDFI ERP website. The bulk geocoder only determines census tracts for addresses. It can't be used to determine if specific addresses are located in native areas. Organization and application information. This section includes application questions numbers 1 through 6 and one related appendix. Question 1, organization information. Question 2, award request. Question 3, accountability and financing track record to minority individuals and minority communities. Question 4, application contacts. Question 5, total estimated hours to complete the application. Question 6, executive summary. Appendix 1, accountability and financing track record to minority individuals and minority communities, which includes Table A, board and executive staff information, and Table B, financing activity. Tips for completing the organization and application information section. Information collected is mostly administrative in nature. Responses to questions in this section do not affect the scoring or evaluation of your application. Question 3 and Appendix 1 collect data necessary for reporting to Congress on the nature of CDFIs applying for and receiving awards under the program. It does not impact application scoring or evaluation in any way. Finally, utilize the Table B worksheet and the CDFI ERP Data Inputs Excel Workbook, available on the CDFI Fund's website, to gather all required data offline before entering it into AMIS.
It looks like we've had a number of people join us now on the visual part of this webinar in addition to the audio, so we're glad that you were able to make that pivot and join with the correct conference number. We apologize for the confusion. Let me reassure you that we will be repeating this webinar next week on the 7th. So if you would like to rejoin us and are able to, you may do so then. And we will also be posting a recording of that webinar on the website. So rest assured you will have all of the information that we are presenting here today. Now we will get into the parts of the application. Part 1 is business strategy. This section includes application questions 7 through 10 and one related appendix. Question 7 is on the assessment of the economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Question 8 is about eligible activities. Question 9 is on your implementation plan. And question 10 is on your projected performance. Appendix 2 is on CDFI ERP projected performance. Table C is about CDFI ERP projected performance table. Here are some tips for completing the business strategy section. Information requested relates to your planned use of a CDFI ERP award, primarily in the form of a narrative response. Responses to questions in this section will be scored. Read each question carefully. Ensure that your narrative response addresses all parts of the question. As appropriate and available, provide quantitative and qualitative data to support your responses. To have a favorable evaluation, you must articulate a strong, coherent strategy for using a CDFI ERP award to address the economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and the needs of the populations and geographies you intend to serve. Part 2, Community Impact. This section includes application questions 11 through 13 and one related appendix. Question 11 is on track record of responding to community needs. Question 12 is on CDFI ERP policy priorities. Question 13 is on outcomes tracking and reporting. Appendix 3 is the community impact tables, including Table D, CDFI ERP track record table, and Table E, projected increase in activities in ERP eligible geographies. So tips for completing the community impact section include information requested relates to your historic and projected community impacts and is requested in the form of checkbox selections, data inputs, and short narrative responses. Responses to questions in this section will be scored. Utilize the Table D worksheet in the CDFI ERP Data Inputs Excel workbook available on the CDFI Fund's website to gather the 5 years of required track record data offline before entering it into AMIS. Select only one of the 5 possible CDFI ERP policy priorities. If you do not select a policy priority, or if you attempt to select more than one policy priority, you will receive an error message in AMIS and will not be able to submit your application. If you are selected to receive an award, the policy priority you select will become a condition of your assistance agreement in the form of a performance goal. Table E will appear in your AMIS application only if you select the policy priority to increase lending in ERP eligible geographies. Part 3, Organization Capacity. This section includes application questions 14 through 16 and 4 related appendices. Question 14 is Key Personnel. Question 15 is Previous Awards. And question 16 is Financial Information and Compliance Risk Evaluation. Appendix 4 is Key Personnel. Appendix 5 is Previous CDFI Fund Awards. Appendix 6 is Application Financial Data Inputs. Appendix 7 is Compliance Evaluation Questions. Tips for completing the Organization Capacity section. Information requested relates to your organizational capacity to carry out your proposed activities under a CDFI ERP award. Responses to questions in this section will be scored. If you plan to expand your staff in order to support your implementation plan, attach a prospective organizational chart that reflects the increased staffing necessary to accomplish the projected level of activities outlined in your application. Utilize the Application Financial Data Inputs Excel workbook available on the CDFI Fund's website to gather all required financial data offline before entering it into Appendix 6 in AMIS. Forms and certifications. Appendix 8 has the following forms and certifications to be completed: the environmental review form, assurances and certifications, and the 501c4 questionnaire, if applicable. Required attachments to the application. The list of required application attachments includes audited financial statements for the applicant's 2 most recent historic fiscal years. This applies to loan funds, venture capital funds, and other non-regulated institutions. Next on the list is a management letter for the applicant's most recent historic fiscal year, or a statement in lieu of management letter. Please see Table 4 of the Fiscal Year 2022 ERP NOVA for a full description. This applies to loan funds, venture capital funds, and other non-regulated institutions. The next attachment is the current year-to-date through March 31st, 2022, unaudited financial statements. This applies to loan funds, venture capital funds, and other non-regulated institutions. The next on the list of attachments is year-end call reports for applicants' 3 most recent historic fiscal years prior to the publication date of the fiscal year 2022 ERP NOFA. For additional guidance, please see the FAQs. This applies to all regulated institutions. Next on the list of attachments is a current organizational chart outlining the applicant's structure and staffing, as well as an updated prospective organizational chart if the applicant plans to add staff resources to accomplish the activities under a CDFI ERP award. This applies to all applicants. Please note, financial statements should only be for the CDFI applicant. If applicants' financial statements are consolidated with other entities, also attach the unconsolidated versions, or note where in the audit the unconsolidated financials are located.
Application submission, review, and selection process. The CDFI Fund has a 2-step process that requires the submission of application documents on separate deadlines in different online systems. Step 1, on or before July 26, 2022 by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, the applicant must submit its SF-424 via grants.gov and enter its EIN and UEI numbers in its AMIS account. Step 2, the applicant must submit a completed CDFI ERP application in AMIS, including all required application documents on or before August 23, 2022 by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Review process. Step 1, eligibility review. The CDFI Fund ensures that each applicant meets all eligibility requirements as detailed in the CDFI ERP NOFA. Step 2, financial analysis and compliance risk evaluation. Financial analysis evaluation. The CDFI Fund evaluates non-regulated applicants using an internal tool called the Application Assessment Tool, known as AAT, that rates applicants from 1, highest score, to 5, lowest score. Non-regulated applicants that score a 1, 2, 3, or 4 for the financial analysis evaluation will move on to Step 3. Non-regulated applicants that received a confirmed total financial composite score of 5 will not advance to Step 3. The financial analysis evaluation for regulated institutions will be based upon regulator feedback and CAMEL scores, or regulated entity equivalent. Applicants must have a CAMEL's rating of at least 4 and or no significant material concerns from their regulator. Compliance risk evaluation. The AAT also rates the applicant's level of compliance risk. based on responses provided in the application, as well as the applicant's reporting history, reporting capacity, and performance risk with respect to the CDFI fund's PG&M. Applications that score 1, 2, or 3 for the compliance risk evaluation will move on to step 3. Applications that score a confirmed 4 or 5 will be deemed a high compliance risk and will not advance to step 3.
Step 3, application evaluation and initial funding recommendation. Evaluation will be conducted by one external non-federal reviewer and one internal CDFI fund or other federal government reviewer. The external reviewer will review and score the applications based on criteria outlined in the CDFI ERP NOFA and will provide a recommendation as to whether the application should be forwarded to step 4 for an award determination. The federal reviewer will conduct quality control for the external reviewer's evaluation and be responsible for scoring of the application. Will provide a recommendation as to whether the application should be forwarded to step 4 for an award determination, and will recommend a preliminary award amount. The recommendation on whether an application should be forwarded to step 4 is based on whether an application achieves minimal standards for clarity and consistency of business strategy, clear and eligible use of funding, and organizational capacity to deploy at least a minimum award amount during the period of performance. This recommendation will not be the result of the Step 3 external reviewer score. Step 4, award amount determination. For each application, a selecting official, who is a member of the CDFI fund staff, conducts quality control to ensure that the evaluation conducted in Step 3 was in accordance with the evaluation criteria. The selecting official then determines an initial award amount based on the results of Step 3. The selecting official may adjust the award amount from the Step 3 recommendation if there are concerns about the applicant's ability to deploy the full recommended award amount within the period of performance. The CDFI fund will then make proportional adjustments on the initial award amount if necessary to ensure that no more than the total amount available for award is awarded. After these adjustments, award amounts will be final. For more information on the CDFI ERP application evaluation process, see the NOFA.
The next item on our agenda is the final item, uses of award, reporting, and reminders. Performance goals and measures. As a condition of their award, CDFI ERP recipients must meet certain PG&Ms, including but not limited to, all CDFI ERP recipients must expend 60% of the award amount by the end of year 3 of the period of performance, 80% of the award amount by the end of year 4 of the period of performance, and 100% of the award amount by the period of performance end date. Financial products and expended award funds used to satisfy the CDFI ERP PG&Ms for reporting may not also be used to satisfy PG&Ms for the CDFI program and NACA program, the Small Dollar Loan Program, or the CDFI Rapid Response Program. On PG&Ms, all CDFI ERP eligible activities must serve ERP eligible geographies, except 10% of an award amount, which may be deployed outside of ERP eligible geographies to serve lower moderate income persons and businesses, including nonprofit organizations, disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic that are included in CDFI eligible markets. Additional PG&Ms for each recipient will be determined based on its proposed commitments relative to the CDFI ERP policy priorities in its application. Final PG&Ms will be set forth in the CDFI ERP Assistance Agreement. Reporting requirements. 5-year period of performance, which begins with the date of the award announcement and includes the recipient's 5 full consecutive fiscal years after the date of the award announcement. Annual reporting requirements include the Transaction Level Report, or TLR, the Uses of Award Report, or UAR, the Performance Progress Report, or PPR, the Financial Statement Audit Report, if applicable, the Single Audit Report, if applicable. Reporting requirements may be added or modified to enable the Secretary of the Treasury to conduct a study of CDFI ERP impact. The CDFI Fund will require recipients to collect and report data on the race and ethnicity of borrowers and/or beneficiaries of the program. Final requirements will be outlined in the assistance agreement.
Reminder of important deadlines. The last day to enter EIN and UEI numbers in AMIS is July 26, 2022 by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time via AMIS. Last day to submit SF-424 mandatory application for federal assistance is July 26, 2022 by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, electronically via grants.gov. Last day to contact CDFI Fund with questions about CDFI ERP is August 19, 2022 by 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Your method could be service request via AMIS, which is preferred, email at erp@cdfi.treas.gov. Last day to contact CDFI Fund with questions about compliance or CDFI certification is August 19, 2022 by 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Via service request via AMIS, email at ccme@cdfi.treas.gov and phone 202-653-0423. Last day to contact AMIS IT Help Desk regarding AMIS technically problems only is August 23, 2022 by 5 p.m. Eastern Time via service request and AMIS, email amis@cdfi.treas.gov or by phone at 202-653-0422. Last day to submit CDFI ERP application is August 23, 2022 by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time via AMIS. Contact information for applicants. The CDFI Equitable Recovery Program application. You can reach us via service request in AMIS, which is still preferred, or email at erp@cdfi.treas.gov. Office of Compliance Monitoring and Evaluation, known as OCME, via service request, or email at ccme@cdfi.treas.gov. Office of Certification, Policy and Evaluation, or OCPE, service request via AMIS, or ccme@cdfi.treas.gov. Awards Management Information System, AMIS, via service request, or via email at amis@cdfi.treas.gov. Grants.gov via email at support@grants.gov, or phone number, which is 1-800-518-4726, or sam.gov. Visit www.ssd.gov or number at 1-866-606-8220. Additional information and all application materials for CDFI ERP can be found on the CDFI Fund's website at www.cdfifund.gov/ERP. Please note, check the CDFI Fund's website for any updates to application materials. That concludes the visual portion of our presentation. Thank you for participating in today's webinar. Deborah?
At this point,
this does conclude.
Excuse me, Robin. Robin?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes. At this point, we will be having our team member, Dan Aiello, touch on the questions that we have received in the Q&A and in the chat.
Hi, everybody. We have a number of questions that we've received through the chat, and still more are coming in. So I'm going to read some of them. Some of these we may need to defer. We plan on releasing an updated FAQ for this program after the next webinar. And so some of these things could certainly be covered in that. Some of them we may ask for you to submit a service request because we need to consult with other business units, particularly some of the questions around reporting that we're getting. We need to make sure that our answers align with kind of existing OCME practices. So having said that, I'm just going to start at the top. Most of the questions were received through the Q&A function, so I appreciate that. So the first question I see is, since we don't have a copy of the ERP Assistance Agreement, how strictly will the CDFI Fund hold the ERP awardee to financial products emphasized in the application? In particular, could the CDFI provide a portion of the financial products to other community development not emphasized in the ERP application, and meet all requirements? So similar to RRP, our intent in general outside of so there are 13 eligible uses of the funds. There's kind of various financial products, and then there are operational support activities. So you're going to be capped at using 15% or $400,000 for operational support activities, and you're going to be capped at using 25% for financial and development services if that's what you want to pursue. But beyond that, you know, if you want to switch between eligible uses, that won't be a condition of the agreement. You'll have some flexibility there, kind of similar to how RRP is structured in that sense. There are several questions we received about the requirement about the collection of demographic data. So for context, as part of this program, one of the conditions of the award will be to collect racial and demographic data from the borrowers that are being supported through the CDFI ERP program. We'll work on an FAQ about that to provide some additional clarity, but definitely plan at least on collecting that data from borrowers. I'm not sure if we'll kind of pass it through to beneficiaries for community facilities at this point in time. But that will be clarified in the agreement, and again, that's an FAQ we'll work on. So we got a question about whether you will need to continue to report over the the full 5-year period if you deploy the funds fully in year 1 or year 2. We're going to check with OCME to see what their policy is on reporting from organizations that expend all the funds prior to the conclusion of the performance period. And we intend to generally follow the CDFI funds policy on that. If you feel like I didn't fully answer your question, please feel free to follow up with a service request. If you already have a service request, please, we're working on it, and we'll get back to you as soon as we have a firm answer. Some of these responses do require a little bit of collaboration with other business units, and we're trying to work as best as we can. As you can imagine, with a new program, we've gotten a pretty high volume of questions, and we want to make sure we get consistent and accurate information out to folks. So there's a question about whether PPP loans count towards the 30% benchmark. This is actually covered in the FAQ on our website. So if you go to that document on cdfifund.gov/ERP, you'll see basically PPP loans would be counted if they are included in your on-balance sheet portfolio. And there's guidance in that FAQ about whether they would be included in your on-balance sheet portfolio. So that's what you'd want to follow there. So someone asks, what if we don't have 5 years worth of data to be considered for the award amount? So if you, didn't operate consistently over the last 5 years, or are a newer organization that has less than 5 years worth of a track record, just insert the data that you do have available, and we'll calculate it based on that. What address do I input to determine ELP eligible geographies for transactions made to intermediaries for relending? That is something that we've gotten at least one service request on, and we are working on the answer to that. We're trying to consult the certification to make sure that our answer is consistent with the certification policy around CDFIs that primarily lend to other CDFIs. So we are working on that. We run a program that offers a partially forgivable loan. I report the loan at origination. Do I count the forgivable amount as a grant when the borrower meets the forgiveness requirements? So we're going to work on some guidance on how to classify forgivable loans, whether as loans or grants. I do say we don't want you to double report them. So if you're reporting a forgivable loan, if the guidance is to report a forgivable loan as a loan, just enter it as a loan. Or you could enter it as a grant at the time it's made. But you don't want to enter it both as a loan and a grant later when it's forgiven, because that would be double counting. But this is something we will work on guidance on. All right, so we have several questions on the policy priorities, which are listed in question 12 of the application. So these are when you see policy priorities referred to in various places, it kind of refers to those outlined in question 12 of the application. So someone asked if the percentages are capped at 100. Yes, they are for the percentage. For the PPC option, option C, is that any census tracts in a persistent poverty county or census tracts in a persistent poverty county that are also ERP eligible. So that would include, so when you're making a forward commitment, keep in mind that you are going to need to devote at least 90% of your funds that are deployed to ERP eligible geographies, which are native areas or census tracts that meet the criteria that are outlined in the NOFA. So that benchmark will be measured based on total lending done to PTCs. But again, because of that additional requirement, about 90%, it will be, the total lending, because most of the lending will need to be done in ERP eligible geographies, that overlap is pretty significant. So someone asked, can a loan count for both the policy priority PG&M and for the PG&M on expending the award? Yes. Within the same program. All right. In Appendix 1, Table B, you've asked us to provide information on financial products to minority consumers and minority-owned businesses. One of the potential responses is unknown. Credit unions don't routinely collect race information on borrowers, so would you prefer that we use a reliable proxy information to make the estimate in the table, or answer unknown? I think at this point we added the unknown option to capture borrowers for whom you are not currently tracking race data. So that would be the most consistent way to approach it. The proxy stuff can be quite complicated, so we prefer you just use unknown. If the recipient is subsequently acquired by another CDFI, what will the process be for complying with the assistance agreement? Mergers and acquisitions tend to be handled on a case-by-case basis. When organizations have awards, it will depend on a number of factors, including whether the new entity continues to be certified as a CDFI, whether the acquiring entity already had an ERP award, and other factors. So that's not something we could provide a blanket answer on at this time. So on the policy priorities, wanted to confirm that selecting 100% for A, B, C, or D in question 12 is the same for scoring purposes as selecting E and committing to a large multiplier. So in general, all of the policy priorities in question 12 are equally weighted. You only need to select one, and you can score, you can get all the points for the policy priority by selecting one and committing to, a significant commitment. Will any elements of the applicant's plan in question 9 be part of a performance goal and measure, e.g. projections for total originations in ERP eligible geographies or goals of opening a branch in a particular location? At this point in time, we are still finalizing the assistance agreement, and we don't have additional information to add about the performance goals beyond what's already been in the NOFA. I do generally tell people if you are applying for a strategy, please, apply for a strategy you believe you can execute and you feel comfortable with. Yeah, we're generally, I can say we're not planning on pulling out narrative elements and making them performance goals, just because that would be quite time intensive. All right. If a CDFI does not anticipate selecting a particular policy priority for question 12, does it still need to complete the related information on its track record in Table D? For example, if the applicant does not select minority individuals or minority-controlled businesses in question 12B, does the applicant need to complete minority individuals or minority-controlled businesses inputs in Table D? So maybe someone on the team can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you are going to be required to complete all of Table D in AMIS in order to save the application. I think just mechanically, you will need to complete that that information.
That's correct, Dan.
Okay. Yeah. Next, the NOFA requires that race and ethnicity tracking but the guidance allows the applicants to choose what they will track. Can you please provide guidance? Will the applicant have to track race and ethnicity? Yes, we plan on requiring the applicant to track race and ethnicity data related to loans made under this program, consistent with kind of the intent of the statute. When do you anticipate the AMIS training manual will be on the website? I'm hoping we're going to get the final version by the end of the week, and we'll get it up shortly thereafter. The application materials indicate that awardees will be, so more stuff about, got a few more questions about tracking data. There's a question about whether audited financials, whether call reports are accepted in lieu of audited financials for regulated institutions. Yes, that's the case. Generally that's the CDFI funds policy, that call reports are required to be attached for regulated financial institutions rather than audits. There's a question about what requirements there will be in the transaction level report. The TLR, we're still establishing TLR requirements. Hopefully that will be available for review by the time the awards are made. Question 11D asks, so we got a couple questions about what is meant by the 2 years, comparing whether the applicant increased financial products in ERP eligible geographies in the 2 years that followed March 2020 as compared to the 3 years that preceded March 2020. Can you confirm the dates for this comparison? So it would be, March 2018 through the end of February 2020, compared with March 2020 through the end of February 2022. And I think you can just kind of compare annual volume because the length of those two time periods are slightly different. So we can work on an FAQ on that because we got that a couple times. If the actual historical date is not available in each category in the application, I assume this is proxy data. This is again, no. So if you don't know, if you don't have historical race and ethnicity data, that's okay. Just enter it as unknown when appropriate. All right, so answer that question. We've got a question, if a bulk geocoder doesn't identify addresses located in native areas, how would the CDFI fund recommend we identify loans in native areas in an official and documentable way? So the bulk geocoder will give you XY coordinates, which you can reference, but you can also look up individual addresses in SIMS. So if you go to our website and click under Tools and Resources, you can go to SIMS and look up individual addresses. In general, if for example, that you made your loans within the boundaries of a federal reservation or in Hawaiian homelands, you don't necessarily need to go back out to confirm that in our systems because those are pretty well-established boundaries. So someone asked what the policy priorities are. Those are listed in question 12 and in various points in the NOFA. We did get a question about on-balance sheet loans for credit unions related to loan participation. This is pretty specific, so if this could just be submitted as a service request, we'll follow up. Will the slides be provided? Yes, we plan on posting the slides after the webinar. We'll work to get those up. So we got a couple questions on the org chart. You're supposed to attach an existing org chart and indicate how the ERP award would retained. Someone asked if that needs to be 2 separate documents, or you could just do it as 1 document, which shows like ERP contingent positions included. You could, yeah, you don't need to attach 2 separate documents. Just however you feel conveys the information most effectively. We are interested in knowing how you're going to incorporate an ERP award into your operations. So how will the performance goals affect organizations that already have current CDFI FA awards and RRP awards? So the performance goals for this program will, in general, be different than the performance goals for FA and RRP. However, there is going to be a restriction on double counting, so loans that are kind of allocated towards the performance goals for this program can't then be allocated for the performance goals for those other programs. Will FA awards be announced before the due date for ERP? No, I can say that for certain. How will we know for sure that our PG&Ms won't overlap? So in general, though we don't love to advertise that once you get an award under various programs, if you have concerns about your PG&Ms, there's often a chance to request a modification, and that can be adjudicated. So there's a question about how we allocate operational expenses geographically. So we're going to work on an FAQ. We got a number of questions on this topic, but we don't plan to require folks to allocate operational expenses geographically. There's a question about pass-through grants. Should they count for our eligibility calculations in terms of grants? Got a couple different questions on this. When we are asking for folks only to report grants that are made with their direct organizational capital, where they are the grantor, not where they are asking as a pass-through and we'll do an FAQ on that. There's a question about a specific portion of the NOFA that's not cited, so the word multiplier. So if someone just wants to submit that as a service request, I can get that. So there's a question, does the entire award amount need to be spent in alignment with the chosen policy priorities? For example, if we choose one for small businesses, do we have to deploy all the funds to small businesses? No, you can choose your level of commitment to the policy priority that's appropriate. And have some flexibility to spend. So if you only committed, say, 60% to a policy priority, you could spend the other 40% for other purposes. Okay. I have other questions as well. Someone was asking for guidance on how to copy race and ethnicity, or how to collect race and ethnicity data. We're going to work on some guidance on that will probably come out closer to when the awards are made. We'll provide guidance on ways that can be done and meet our requirements. There's a question about using the funds to make grants to businesses. How would you do that? So we're not going to provide specific guidance on how those grants need to be structured. However your organization is comfortable making those grants, I would recommend some sort of grant agreement, but you need to structure that based on the objectives you're trying to achieve with that grant. So there's a question regarding eligibility. Does our organization need to have each of the last 5 years meeting the 30% threshold, or does the average of the 5 years need to meet the 30% threshold? It's the average of the 5 years needs to meet the 35% threshold, not each of the 5 years. Erin, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Again, I've gotten a couple. If you don't have historic race or ethnicity data, I believe you can enter unknown in most of the charts where that information is asked for. Okay, are all the funding priority categories scored equally, or is the minority component scored more highly? They are all scored equally. No funding priority is preferred over any other. I'm going to make that very clear. You can score equally well. You only need to select one funding priority, and you can score just as highly using that funding priority as any other. Will slides from the first portion of the presentation be available on the website later? Yes, it will. I apologize again. Is the application live in AMIS? If so, how is it accessed? Yes, it is currently live in AMIS. You would go through the ERP program profile, which is created. So similar to how you would go for any of our other programs, you have to go through the program profile to create the application, and there are some eligibility questions you need to fill out before you can launch the application. Again, we hope to get those AMIS instructions up in the near future. Someone asked, what does the grant portion of the application consist of? I'm not totally sure what that means, but you can use, the award will be a grant to your organization, and then you can use our grant to either make loans, for a variety of eligible purposes. You can also use our grant to make grants to other organizations. Again, there are questions about loan and what requirements there will be around collecting race and ethnicity data in the final agreement. We'll try to work on an FAQ on that to provide a little more information. The question is, what if the CDFI has been certified for 2 years and has only been gathering borrower addresses for the last 2 years and does not have addresses for the previous years? Please use the data that you do have. I'm a little unclear as to how lending can be done without knowing the address of the borrower. So that may be a very specific circumstance. If you want more specific guidance, please feel free to submit a service request. Sorry, I'm just going through the ones that arrived while I was answering other questions. All right, if the applicant has a 12/31/21 fiscal year but has not yet completed their 12/31/21 audit, how should this be treated in terms of historic and projected years? Please submit a service request about specific guidance on that. In general, we anticipate, because the requirement is that audits generally need to be completed within 6 months of the fiscal year, and that we anticipate that, if folks with 12/31 fiscal year ends will have audits, if not right now, in the near future, and should be able to, provide data for that year as a historic fiscal year. If there's a delay in the audit that's going to, extend the period of completion significantly, then that's something we need to provide specific guidance on a case-by-case basis. All right. Again, so for track record, the ERP 5-year performance requires the awardee to track the race and ethnicity of beneficiaries if the project is not occupied. The date of the reporting requirement, can we use race and ethnicity data from the census tract in which the project is located? I'm not totally sure what this question refers to. So backwards looking, and again, Aaron, jump in if I'm forgetting something about the tables. I thought we were just asking about race and ethnicity data for the borrowers, not necessarily. We're not asking them to pass through that to like the clients served by a specific business.
Correct. We're not asking for information about end beneficiaries.
Okay. Are there parameters around who and to whom we can make grants with ERP funds? Those will be outlined specifically in the assistance agreement, but basically any type of organization that would be eligible for a loan would also be eligible for a grant. All right, when I went to enter my UEI, which is in grants.gov, it is still pre-filling my DUNS number and I can't edit it. I changed this when we submitted my FA grant. Should I worry about this or should I let it get fixed on its own? If that's an issue you're having in AMIS, please submit a service request to follow up. If that's an issue you're having in grants.gov, please contact grants.gov directly as quickly as possible. If it's some other issue that I'm not capturing correctly, just please complete a service request. So there's a question, what if the A133 audit is not complete? Should they use 2020 as the most recently completed fiscal year? I believe we don't necessarily care about the A133 audit. We're looking at the financial audit. So the completion date of the A133 is not relevant in determining the historic fiscal year. All right. So that issue with the UEI was in AMIS. So yes, please check and see if you can get your UEI in AMIS. I think it should be a different field than DUNS. But if you're having issues with UEI and AMIS, please do submit service requests. I recommend that for everyone. Are single-use audit and compliance consulting fees eligible as direct operating expenses? Please please submit a service request about that. Okay. We're running out of time in this webinar. If I did not get to your question, and there are many questions that I didn't get to because we got over 80, please submit a service request, and we will follow up with you at a later date. I'll hand it back over to Sylvia, and she can provide the rest of the information.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you all for joining us again today. Thank you for your patience as we worked through technical issues. We will be having, as I said, another webinar next week on the 7th, on Thursday, July 7th at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. The conference number on that one is, I want to make sure I get it right, so I want to give it to you correctly. The conference number for Thursday, July 7th at 3 o'clock Eastern Time is 2800278, and the audience passcode is 4460211. So again, we will be posting the slides to the website. We will be having another webinar next week, and we will be posting a recording of the webinar to the website as well. So again, thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to getting your wonderful applications.
And thank you. This does conclude today's conference call. You may disconnect your lines, and thank you for your participation.